Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
What's up, Craig?
Doom scrolling for the last 48 hours, and I can't stop watching CNN. Or I guess I had to stop for, well, I do have it.
It's the final countdown. Yeah.
Of the mail-in ballots. Yeah.
Who's gonna flip Georgia? Oh, wait.
Oh, wait.
Too
No
political?
politics.
Damn it. Too much politics.
But
Oh,
yeah.
no. I've done it, Craig. I talked about politics.
All right. Well, we'll know if he flips Georgia when the person who runs the website wakes up in the morning.
I know.
So.
If it's happening, it'll probably happen by the time you all listen to this. It just hasn't happened by the time we're recording it. Along with the
Pennsylvania.
Same with Pennsylvania, and yeah. So.
I would say this is my break from CNN, but I definitely have it on my external monitor right now.
Yeah, I have SportsCenter on. We were talking about this before we got on.
You're smarter than I am.
I have had to avoid things because I just, it's not good for my mental health, man. I've tried, one thing about this COVID situation is have I tried really hard to be mindful of my mental health, because it's that's not something I've always thought a lot about, but my goodness, I've learned that I need to pay a lot of attention to it, and just a couple of hours of coverage on Tuesday was enough to send me over the edge. So I've learned to stay mostly away from it. I've relied on you and my other Coug Center friends to update me through Slack so that I can kind of see, I get all my updates there, and that's better than doom
the Coug Center
scrolling.
Slack is basically an election update.
It's election update.
You pretty much get every election update. You just
pretty much all of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh look, it's Georgia updated and Pennsylvania updated. It's how many votes does he? How many of these votes and what percentage is coming in, and how many of these does he need to cross the threshold? And yeah,
you get our junior analysis and all that stuff.
It's pretty hilarious to watch. I love it. You guys are great.
Yeah, so this is Podcast versus Everyone. Not an election podcast. All the stuff we're saying is going to be dated probably by the time you listen to this. But I'm Craig Powers. With me is the mentally taken care of Jeff Nusser.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but I'm a little better off than I was.
Attempted.
I'm better off than I was 2 days ago. I can definitely say that with a high degree of confidence. So, yeah.
All right. So, what's big about this week? I mean, there's the election, but there's something else.
What else
I
is
can't
happening?
remember anymore. I've just been watching CNN for too long.
Yeah, I could tell you because I've been writing my ass off this week for Coug Center, which is something I haven't done in about, 7 months, 8 months.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I've just been trying to write.
What are you writing about?
Well, I'm writing about, football season.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
The Washington State Cougars are playing a football game on Saturday night.
They are. It's the next to last game of the day.
As is intended.
That's right.
In case you haven't been staying up late enough all week,
yep,
you get one more night on Saturday where you get to stay up until 11 p.m. I am a little mad that there was supposed to be a WSU game in Pullman on Halloween this year, if I remember right. And
I think that's right.
And Halloween, like one of the worst travesties of the pandemic is that not only was Halloween on a Saturday this year, it was on a Saturday, which is also daylight savings. So you get or the end of daylight savings. Yeah. So you get an extra hour. Like I remember in Pullman when I went to WSU, I was at Valhalla, and when that extra hour hit, you're like, hell yeah! It just went from 2 to 1 again. We get another hour. But we were robbed of that this year.
Yes.
WSU, it definitely would have been a 7:30 game. And then you get that extra hour to drink afterwards, but we didn't get it. So November 7th.
Costumes and all the students.
The last Halloween one was that rainy Stanford game.
Yep. I remember that.
Which I remember, I think, started tailgating very early for that. That was a very long day. And Christian McCaffrey fumbled. Still. And,
for sure.
But yeah, so we didn't get that, but we do have WSU at the Halloween-colored Oregon State on November 7th.
How about that?
At an empty Reeser Stadium. You don't have those loud, but I'm sure they'll still have that incredibly obnoxious chainsaw. Which is the enemy of like the chainsaw, which is like it's the robotization of the beaver.
They'll use chainsaws, I think, to clear out dams.
Yeah,
I think that's how that works. I don't get it.
Beavers cut down trees with their big ass front teeth, and someone was like, "Well, that looks good. What if we put gasoline inside of a machine that has this chain that runs around kind of a blade shape? What if we did that?" And they're like, "Oh, that's way more efficient than a beaver." Fuck beavers. We don't need beavers anymore.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
And it's really goddamn annoying.
I'll bet people think the same thing about us when we play the Jaws theme song and then clap our hands like the alligator.
But the Jaws theme song does not reach that pitch. Like that incredibly annoying pitch. It's true.
It's not as obnoxious.
You barely hear it when you're watching on TV, but man, you don't. Because I'm pretty sure Oregon State plays that every time they get a first down. It's like, stop.
It's like, why? Yeah.
Stop. That's your mortal enemy. Stop.
Doesn't really work that way.
But anyways, football game. There's a football game. And we know who the quarterback is going to be for Washington State in that game. We
do.
And it is a true freshman.
It is. How about
Jaden
that?
DeLora.
That's crazy. Like we talked about this last week. I did not expect that.
Isn't it kind of crazy that Mike Leach recruited like Nick Rolovich's dream quarterback?
It's super crazy.
It's like he knew. He's like, look, I'm going to leave at the end of this season.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell them to hire Nick Rolovich, which he kind of did. He did suggest him. But not that he told him. But then he just recruited the quarterback that Rolovich wanted, but was definitely not going to get at Hawaii. Yeah. And then Rolovich comes here and he's got him, and he's plays the best in scrimmages and had played this offense when he was in high school, and he's he's got a little wiggle to him. He can move and he can throw, and hey, let's do it. 7-game season. No one's eligibility counts. Let's roll with the true freshman, man.
Yeah, it seems like he also won some people over with his leadership too. I mean, it's all reading between the lines and trying to, divine stuff from tea leaves or whatever. But it just seemed like that was a high point when when Rolovich talked about what he brought to the table, and when other offensive players talked about how he was doing. One of the things they talked about was his maturity and his composure. And, and this is maybe one of those things where, he benefited from COVID in the sense, in maybe a couple different ways. So one, obviously the short prep time and his familiarity with the run and shoot. Everybody, the St. Louis High School in Hawaii runs the run and shoot. Not a shock, because they almost, this is going to sound weird, but they almost basically have a pipeline up through that high school to the University of Hawaii. So it's
right.
Like, it's not weird that they run the exact same offense. And as far as I know, the high school and the college coaches on that island are pretty tight, and just kind of all that stuff. So it's like Hawaii is a very tight knit place and community, and everybody kind of helps everybody, and whatever. So okay, so there's that piece, the sort of the short preparation, the familiarity with the offense. There's that, but I also maybe wonder a little bit about things like, if DeLora shows up on campus in July like normal, and then camp starts, in the middle of, at the beginning of August, right? And then runs up to the beginning of September. I mean, does he have as much time as maybe is necessary to, convince his teammates that he can do the job and convince the coaches that he's actually mature enough to handle it and all those things versus what happened this time, which is he probably showed up in mid-July and, right, like months go by of him working out with the team and, hanging out with the other players and being in that quarterback room and, just all of the stuff that goes along with sort of leadership. I would imagine it'd be much more difficult for a true freshman to show up and a couple weeks later embark on the journey of trying to win this job versus showing up and then, 2 months later, maybe 2.5 months later, embarking on that journey. So, maybe he benefited a little bit in that way. I mean, of course, we're all just, we're just talking out of our ass. I mean, this is all just,
right.
I mean, we have no idea, but, trying to figure out how it happened, I think it's probably almost as simple as he was just better. And, you can take go one or two directions with that, right? You can be like, oh man, the guys
took care
who
of the
were
ball
here were
better.
so bad.
Like you can say he took care of the ball better.
Yeah.
And we talked about last week about how Cameron Cooper has kind of shown the propensity to give the ball away.
Yep.
And
in the limited times that we've seen him.
In the limited time that we've seen him. I mean, it's all been practice games.
Yeah. But still, it's been frequent.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's okay. And then it's, I suppose you could look at it as, well, why, these guys who we think are really good, why weren't they able to win the job? Well, why not flip it around the other way and say, well, if you think they're really good, then wow, look at what this freshman did, right? I think I'd rather lean that direction, at least until proven otherwise. But
can we just be positive?
Yeah, like I definitely want to lean that direction. And if he comes out and lays a giant turd, then fine. But I think I mentioned this last week. I mean, I know for a fact that Leach and his staff were high on Cooper. A little less. I heard a little less buzz about Cruz. Not that they weren't high on him, but it just was like, I was like, hey, what about Cooper? And they're like, oh yeah, they really like him. They really, really like him. And the time that I got, the brief time that I got to spend around the quarterbacks and Leach and in that quarterback room, you could just tell. Like you could tell that they were they were paying special attention to him, but you could tell that they were investing, a little bit in him. That they kind of thought, he was the guy. So coming up, and not that guaranteed anything, but I just know that they liked his potential and his ability. And so, if he wasn't able to win the job, then to me that says, all right, a guy that's pretty damn talented, got beat out. And to me, that's okay. And it's not like this was some dude just like, it's not like this is Luke Falk walking in as a walk-on and winning the job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that would freak me out. I'd be like, and I know Luke Falk turned out great, but if a high school kid shows up and a high school walk-on shows up and is able to win the job out of the gate, you're either thinking like, well, how in the hell did that guy get missed? Or everybody else sucks, actually. Delore is a guy who 24/7 rated as a 4-star recruit. Mm-hmm. He was a composite 3-star, which meant that Rivals and ESPN didn't have him rated as high, but 24/7 thought he was a 4-star guy. And, that's, to me that means something. So I feel good about it. I'm excited to see him play. I'm excited
absolutely.
To watch. Yeah, I'm excited. We got a little glimpse of what you can do, with Gardner Minshew when a quarterback can move a little bit and can pick up some yards.
And I think
so that should be fun.
We talked about this last week. He's more than, in terms of running the ball, he's more than Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew is a scrambler.
Sure. Yep.
He's a guy that can extend the pocket, and then if he's got some space, he'll pick up some yards, and he's got enough athleticism to kind of make a move and stuff. But like Jaden Delore is a legit like running threat, and like you talked about last week. Even the guy from Hawaii that got drafted this year, I can't remember his name, but he ran the ball for Rolovich last year, and so like in the last couple of years, so that he in the run and shoot, the quarterback can be called on to run the ball, and so maybe that's part of why he won the job too. But he also seemed to be throwing the ball better too, so than the other guys, at least in the limited amount of stats we have from scrimmages or whatever. But hey, he won the job, and
he did.
And hey, I mean, a kid that we brought in and who was fairly high rated, who got some definitely late interest. He also didn't start until he was older.
Yeah, he started when he was a junior.
I mean, because this is a legit high school. Like Tua Tagovailoa, how do you say his last name?
Yes, you got it.
It's from there. Jason Gesser's from there. Like there's like
Marcus
Mariota. Like there's
Yep.
This is a legit high school.
It's legit.
This is not some random tiny high school this guy comes from. So like there's competition.
National powerhouse.
This is national powerhouse.
Yeah.
And so like he had to earn a job, and he did. And once he did, he started getting more interest because he actually was playing. And people, because if you're in Hawaii, like no one's gonna notice like the backup kid, like especially in Hawaii.
Yep.
But once he started getting noticed, he got more interest. WSU got him. And it may turn out that he is great, and maybe it turns out that this might work out really well. What do you think about him in the very first game of his life? I will say, it's hard for me to imagine the Oregon State defense being very good this year. They were even worse than WSU's defense last year.
Which is crazy pants.
Which is crazy. So I think like as far as like if you don't get to play an FCS team, you don't get to play a Mountain West team or whatever to start, but you do like in terms of playing a conference opponent. This is probably in terms of a quarterback playing a defense. This is about as soft of a defensive landing as you should get. I mean, it's just an assumption on my part. Maybe they'll come out and they're going to be amazing this year, but I don't know.
They will have their pass rusher back who did not play against us last year, and his name completely escapes me.
Rashed?
Sure. Sure, that sounds great. Whatever his name is, that's some great podcasting.
Yeah, I think he's a preseason All-Pac 12. Yeah.
So really, really good player who didn't play against us last year, thank goodness. But yeah, like I'm in agreement with you. I mean, I think they're sort of trying to do the same thing with their defense that we're doing with ours, which is trying to talk yourself into they're going to magically get better, with mostly the same guys. And and that's a tall ask. That's a tough order. I mean, that's for us. I think maybe it's a little easier to talk yourself into it because you got a new coaching staff, and it seemed like dysfunction was such a major part of it last year. But for Delora, yeah, I mean, this is as soft a landing as you can get outside of maybe Arizona, right? Like, and I mean, I guess you could say maybe Colorado. Like I guess those are kind of the three that. You feel like would be pretty soft landings for a quarterback in terms of his opponent. So, and not just the overall quality, but the defense in particular. So, really excited to watch him go. Really excited to kind of watch the run and shoot in action. When they dip down to 65 or 70% passing, it's going to feel like all of a sudden we transition to the wishbone or something.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. Like that's
super weird.
That's going to be really well, and it's really going to be weird not to see the linemen like 3 yards apart, and then it's like and it's there's going to be a lot of stuff, and like it's going to be weird because like we're just so trained with the air raid. We know all the routes. We know like everything looks similar. Like every play that happens is a play you've seen 100 times before, and so you're like, oh, I'm used to this. But
it's like a warm blanket.
Yeah, but it's going to be wild. Like because like like we've talked about watching Mississippi State, and we're like, oh, this looks like what I know, and
exactly.
But now it's going to be different, which is kind of it's exciting to me. Like it's fun, exciting, new quarterback, new everything. Like new offense, obviously not new everything. Like most of there's a ton of offensive guys that tons of linemen, tons of skill guys that we will definitely know. But yeah, new offense and all that. It's gonna be interesting, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously. He's got Jameer Calvin playing on the outside, which will be very fun. Like that, he's definitely had the athleticism to play on the outside.
I'm hoping that ends up being sort of a Gabe Marks looking thing.
I that's exactly who I thought, except faster. Like, but if because Calvin has always shown athleticism. In the air raid, he probably, just because of his height, like they had some big guys on the outside. They slot him in the inside because they were so stacked really of wide receivers. And but he always looked like a guy that could definitely play on the outside because of his speed, his athleticism. I'm really excited to see that. And we still got Renard Bell, Calvin Jackson coming back, and all that. So that, and obviously Max Borghi. And so he'll have weapons. He should have pretty decent offensive line. We'll see about Liam Ryan that second year at left tackle. Hopefully he's figured figure a little more out. Maybe it'll be a little bit easier not being on that island he is in, and as a in the air raid, everyone's one-on-one. Everyone's one-on-ones. They're not double teaming anybody, and so
he might be able to say that.
Yeah.
He's not going to be asked to drop back, 50, 60 times a game. That's just not going to.
Yeah, that left tackle, that leg kick over and over and over again. That's got to be exhausting. But
and
so,
and I don't. Again, that's, you can kind of go two different directions, right? You can be like, well, either it's maybe not good that they didn't have anybody who could beat him out, or again, maybe he's improved, and maybe. Being in this sort of a setup versus, just, again, doing that, vertical set, 65 times a game, maybe just not having to do that 65 times a game makes him more effective. I mean, I think there was a sense that he was a better run blocker than a pass blocker anyway. So,
he definitely seemed a lot better when he was playing inside.
Yeah.
For sure.
So maybe getting him in tight, which is, the way the offensive line is going to be set up now with those normal splits. Maybe those things all help. So I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. And as far as Oregon State's defense goes, it's a lot of the same guys. A lot of the same guys we saw last year. But like you said, they have Hamilcar Rashed is playing. He's very talented.
There we go. That's right. That he's got that awesome first name.
Yeah. He's very talented. Big. They have him listed as an outside linebacker. He's more of a rush guy. At least, unless they change the way they use him, that would be nuts. But I mean, he's a prototypical size, 6'4", 245. Like he's a rush guy. Like he's gonna probably get his hands on Jaden a couple times. It's but yeah, other than that. They're returning the same secondary, really, mostly, and they're returning a lot of the other guys. Maybe they get better. Returning is good, and maybe they're better, and maybe another year under the coach who is escaping. God damn it. The former UW assistant coach,
Jonathan Smith.
Thank you. That maybe another year under them, they're doing a little better. Although he's more offensively inclined, but But let's look at the other side. Jamar Jefferson is still there. He has definitely ran over the Cougs before.
Nightmares.
Multiple times.
Nightmares.
Let's see. I think he had a 4 or 5 touchdown game against the Cougs in Corvallis. And then last year, definitely had some big TDs. So I can't believe he's only a junior, man. But he's a grinder. I imagine, especially with Tristan Gebbia, who doesn't have a ton of experience, hasn't been super good. They'll probably lean on Jefferson quite a bit is my guess, just because he is very good and big, and WSU obviously small defensive line as usual, and but we can talk about that in a sec. It was a very good piece that Zane did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I expect them to maybe. Yeah, they ran the ball, but they ran the ball, probably less last year than they have in the past. But they've lost some of their talent in the passing game, and so I would expect come off the bat with a less experienced quarterback, who's really only thrown. I don't know, like he hasn't played much. He threw 60 passes last year. I was like, I know he's played, but he's not a lot. But I expect them to run ball. He can run the ball a little bit too. I should note that. So he can move a little bit. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Definitely have nightmares of Jamar Jefferson. So he's the person who I focus on. They got those big ass tight ends too. I don't know if, very clearly in my mind, I think it was Tegan Quatoriano. I think it was him, 84, that Luton went for to try to get that fourth down right before WSU went and won. And you just looked at him like, oh God, he's singled up on our guy. He's 1,000 feet tall. He's 6'6". There's no way. And then thank you, Luton, you overthrew him. And
yep.
And then WSU kept that, 5 alive. So, I think their offense should probably be pretty solid, even with the new quarterback. So that could give us trouble.
Yeah, he was a highly regarded recruit.
Yeah.
So there was that. I mean, he's a 4-star kid. WSU recruited him, although I don't think we.
Of course, he's a redshirt junior now and is barely played. So who knows how good he actually is?
He originally went to Nebraska.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and then originally went to Nebraska and then transferred to Oregon State. So, there's that piece. He, like I said, 4-star recruit in high school. Like I said, committed to Nebraska. Didn't I don't know the whole story there, but obviously things didn't work out in Nebraska and. Ended up, coming out to Corvallis, where Jonathan Smith has shown a little bit of propensity to work with sort of reclamation projects a little bit, or second, basically transfer guys, and have some success.
I mean, I think that's pretty smart, but for him.
Yeah, I mean, Gebbie is not that big of a kid. 6'3", about 200. Not a huge kid. Got a good arm, not a great arm. It seems like. Yeah. Just on what I was reading up on him this morning, seems like his arm's maybe not as good as Luton. Not able to push the ball. What
I remember watching him play is he looks a bit scrawny and he just looked young. And I guess he's not young anymore. So, redshirt junior is a time for a quarterback that really could take a step forward, to be honest.
But I feel pretty good about the fact that, they're turning over more important positions than we are.
Yeah,
if that makes sense with their offense. I mean,
absolutely.
I think we both agree that both the defenses are going to be probably not great. And
I mean, let's say like WSU is turning over, like, lost many top receivers or whatever, but we know that because so many guys got time,
right? We know
with
so many guys
WSU. Like, so many receivers got time. We know that the guys coming back are good, and then we get Jameer Calvin back, which is huge. Yep. And so but they lost Isaiah Hodgins, who was
their
huge piece of their offense.
He was their
last
passing
year.
game.
Yeah, he was their passing game, and so they'll have to adjust to that. Like the WSU. Didn't focus on any one guy that much.
Yep.
And so I will say...
And then their quarterback, too. So I think it ultimately comes down to what you talked about first, which is their running attack.
They have Jefferson back. They did lose their kind of sprint back, Pierce. Like, so they don't have him. And he was the kind of, like the quick part of he got time because Jefferson was often hurt,
right?
But then he kind of proved himself to be very good in his own right, and so they don't have that kind of the 1-2 as much. I mean, maybe the backup is Baylor is better than he's shown in the past. Like, we'll get more time, obviously, but I think that they've lost some guys, so. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, they have some they have a couple redshirt seniors on their offensive line, redshirt junior, but they do have a redshirt Frosh starting at left tackle. So we'll see what Joshua Gray has, up against our.
We'll see what Ron Stone can do to that guy.
Yeah, come on, Ron Stone. So interesting. Out of high school, he was a 3-star. and he was 6'5", 233 coming out of high school, and now he is listed at 6'4", 289. So he shrunk an inch and gained 50 pounds.
He's their own little Andre Dillard.
Yeah. But yeah, he's let's see, 3-star. You know, just your classic WSU Oregon State offensive line recruit. I would say, like, he's from Rancho Cucamonga, so we know that high school well.
Yes, we do.
But yeah, so yeah, I don't know. Like that's actually interesting. Ron Stone
it's a whole lot of I don't know, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like everything we say, it's like I don't know. Like we are literally just making shit up right now.
I'm sorry, guys. I didn't.
But there's only so much we can know,
well,
right?
And I didn't write my extensive preview this week. I've had a lot of other stuff going on. I'm sorry I didn't do it.
Everything is just
but it's.
We're just guessing at everything right now.
Well, yeah. Know? So my first game of the year is like always like really hard to preview because you don't have really that much idea. But usually it's like freaking like Northwest Louisiana South Tech, and so it's like whatever. They're just still going to be.
Yeah, I mean whatever. We're going to kill them anyway.
Yeah, and so, or we're going to lose to them in devastating fashion. Whatever,
Well, you know that too.
But yeah, so it's like, so this is really hard, and yeah, so it's hard to say. I have Jamar Jefferson nightmares, and even though we haven't lost to him, but he like specifically has made it a lot harder to beat Oregon State the last few years. So, but yeah, Gebbia, I've watched him play a couple times because like Luton would get injured or whatever. Like he was always kind of injured or whatever, and so he didn't. But yeah, nothing was super impressive. He did seem a lot more mobile than Luton is, and so I think we'll see a lot more of that. But yeah, if we look at WC's defense though, like, are we? I don't know. Like Oregon State's lost a lot. WSU hasn't lost a ton on defense, but also, I mean, what they're returning hasn't impressed very much. So
I'm hopeful about the secondary. Like that's the area where I'm actually legitimately hopeful for some pretty significant improvement. You do bring in Jalen Watson, who, if that's a name that people don't know yet, that's a name you should know. Because he's a guy who USC tried to take twice, and academics got in the way both times. And so we will gladly take the kid who can't get into USC. He's a 6'3", 190 corner.
A lowly public school.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. So, 6'3", 190 corner. You feel good about that. George Hicks. And look, let's be real too. Like we have a pretty decent track record of guys who were either bad or even just okay on defense who suddenly got just a lot better as seniors.
Yeah.
Particularly in the secondary. I mean, I think of a guy like, and again, this is going to be like the most backhanded of compliments ever. So apologies in advance if any of these guys are listening. But
I'm waiting for that name.
I know DeMonte Horton is one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big one. Where just was pretty.
He just figured out his
good.
He figured out he just figured out what he can do, and what he can do is read the quarterback's eyes, and that's what he can do. So
but you know what? If you can get yourself in the right position, even if you're not the fastest guy, not be out of position, then you can accomplish a lot. And he was that guy, and really experience is really the only way you can get there. I think of a guy like Alex.
And honestly, I think
right?
if you're talking about a guy like Hicks, like he's shown flashes of decency, flashes
George
of
Hicks
decent.
is exactly the guy I'm talking about.
I think there was times like he was the best corner in some games. Yep. And you were like, why isn't this guy playing all the time? Like he's pretty damn good.
So I have a lot of hope that he could actually be really good. Daniel Isom, if he is stuck at safety this time, Again,
not
he's
flipping back
guy,
and forth.
He's a rangy.
Exactly.
He's their free safety, so he's a rangy.
Got the
dude.
size.
Yeah, he's solid size. 6 foot 200, which I think is a little bigger actually than what he played at last year. I can't say that for sure, but I want to say
he's a little, probably stronger.
He may have been about 190. He played about 190 last year. Tyrese Ross, if he's got his shit together, like that dude hits like a ton of bricks, right? So so he could be exciting. I mean, I just think there's reason to think that the secondary, and maybe I'll end up looking like a fool, but probably, but I think there's reasons.
That's what we're here for.
Jalen Watson, again, super talented. Daniel Isom is a redshirt senior. George Hicks is a senior. Tyrese Ross showed flashes last year. So, and I think you're going to see all of these guys play. I mean, the backups, Derek Langford, Amari Archie, Chad Davis, Shaw Smith-Wade. I mean, all these guys are going to play anyway. So, who knows? But I have hope there. The linebackers, I think Jihad will be himself, which is great. But Justice Rogers is currently still the starter at middle linebacker, which, again, maybe I should just apply my logic here. He's going to be a redshirt senior, so maybe
instead of Brown.
Maybe things get better.
Instead of Travian Brown,
Yeah, and that is not an or situation, right? Like there are lots of
there's
ors
no
on
or.
here.
There's
This
lots
is
of
not
ors
an or.
listed. Not as many as a Leach offense, but there's definitely a lot of ors listed.
On
But
defense,
Travian Brown's that that guy that you're like, all right, like he's got that size, athleticism,
and he's even bigger this year. He's 233.
Yeah, he's a beast. He's like a guy like this guy could play in the NFL on some day. But maybe Justice Rogers figured it out, man. Maybe he figured it out. What we talked about with him before is his just ability, like to do what he's supposed to do to hit the hole he's supposed to hit, to do
and actually finish a tackle
and we know he's athletic too. Like he's an athletic guy. He's just in the wrong place often, or misses the tackle or whatever.
Yeah, he overruns a gap or whatever.
Side note, I'm gonna give. Sorry if one of the WSU interns is listening right now, but I'm gonna give the lean to WSU or to OSU on the game notes. Ours is long and has a lot of stats from last year and a lot of stuff that you just don't need. But yeah, so sorry, that was my aside. I'm just scrolling through it and I'm like, okay, cool. All of our starting lineups from 2019 are here. Very helpful information right here. So some guy named Gordon started every game at QB last year. You think he'll be playing this year or what?
No, probably not important.
Also, by the way, just while I'm looking at this, Deion McIntosh is listed as the H for the game against the starting H for the game against UCLA last year. Which that may have happened, that very well, he could have split out, maybe it could have been a 2-back and he split out, something like that.
That's probably what it was. We probably started with 2 backs.
Yeah, because it's Bell, and then just against UCLA. McIntosh.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, the reason why that position is called H is because it used to be a halfback.
It used to be a halfback.
Yeah, it used to be a halfback in the air raid, and so then eventually just because they would always run two running backs, and then eventually it became 4 wide receivers all the time, and they just stayed with the H. So yeah, the more you know. Like you can't
still no tight ends
about
though.
The air raid anymore. Nobody cares.
Yeah, still no tight ends though. We're in the run and shoot.
Ends.
Still no tight ends.
Not anymore.
All you people clamoring for your next Jed Collins. No, not going to happen.
Nope. No, in fact, if anything, they're going to get smaller. So, I mean, you look at what we got now. I mean, our wide receivers right now, our only...
Run and shoot, typically very small receivers.
Our only wide receivers over 6 feet tall are walk-on Lucas Bacon, the backup at X, and
he's walk-on and he's the backup at X,
not a
if that makes you
Jay
feel
Wilkerson
good.
Jay Wilkerson signed last year, but he's also a freshman.
Yep.
6'1". So those are our two guys at 6 feet tall. Everybody else, Calvin Jackson 5'10", Bernard Bell 5'8", Joey Hobart 5'11". And by the way, all of these are overshot by at least an inch.
Oh, for sure.
You know what that is. So Travell
we've
Harris,
seen
5'9".
Bernard Bell. He's not even 5'9" or whatever they list him as.
Says he's 5'8". I would buy that he's 5'8".
Okay.
He's just like he seems like the kind of guy who'd be like okay with just, hey, I'm 5'8", it's cool. You know. Joey Hobart, 5'11", I'll bet he's 5'10" tops.
Oh yeah.
That's
Unless
just
he grew.
But I'm just like, that seems when someone says they're 5'11", it means they're really like probably 5'10" or 5'9".
Because if they're 5'11", they'll say they're 6 foot.
If they're 5'11", they'll say 6 foot. Exactly.
Every time. 5'11" guys, you know.
Yep. And if they're 6 feet,
5'9" guys, you know.
If they say they're 6 foot, they're probably 5'11", except for me, I'm actually 6 foot.
If I say I'm 6'5", that is what I am. I'm not trying to lie.
You are definitely not lying about being 6'5", that's for sure.
So we're due for a break. So let's get into.
Well, should we predict first, or do we want to save that till the end?
No, let's predict right now.
Okay.
This
God,
is our,
we've talked for 40 minutes already.
Yeah, this is our game preview part. So we'll predict right now. We won't make them wait until the end after we talk about basketball and beer and shit. So I have no fucking clue. Like, not even a fucking clue. So I'm just I think the line started at Cougs -3. I think it's -1 now,
which was wild.
I think it's still -1 or
it dropped. Like, it dropped fast. We are the underdogs now. It's like,
okay.
Yeah, we're like Cougs +2 or +1.5, depending on where you look. But
fuck that.
Yeah,
Cougs, 20, just awkwardly Cougs 29, Beavs awkwardly 23 somehow.
Yeah,
safeties abound.
Yeah. I'm thinking 31-27 or something like that.
Cougs or Beavs.
The one thing I feel fairly confident.
We're going
about,
Cougs, everyone.
Yeah, of course.
Rolovich 1-0.
Yeah. The one thing that I felt actually reasonably confident about when I was like looking, so I'm doing these gambling picks with PJ's Gambletron, and you know, I looked at the over under for WSU OSU, and it was 65.5, and I was like,
that's big.
That's big, and you got two. I know the defense.
A brand new
terrible,
offense.
Brand new
an offense
that's
lost their two most important players, quarterback and the wide receiver.
I mean, I know the defenses were bad last year, but I mean, you're 65.5. I mean, you're talking a game that's like, you know, 35-30, 35-31. Like, I can't. And that's like the break even, right? Like, I don't know if I can see. To me, that's a high number. I feel really good about it being less. I mean, I don't know. It's not going to be low scoring, I don't think, but it also would not shock me in the slightest if both teams end up in the 20s. So
yeah. So let me just think about something here. So we know Leach lost his first game. We all remember that game very well.
Yes, we
which
do.
I actually didn't. I had forgotten about it, and someone reminded me of it the other day. I'm like, oh yeah, that was shit.
It was.
So was Doba's first game the Notre Dame game, or did we play Idaho first? I can't remember. Oh, we played Idaho first. So
yeah,
Doba started Doba started his career 1-0.
Doba did start 1-0. I know
Leach did not start. Leach started 0-1.
Yeah.
So
Kookfan had a story about that there's not been a coach to start 1-0 with a game on the road since like Warren Powers or something in the 70s. So
who, I mean, with a great last name, who stuck around very shortly at WSU. Yeah. I think it was like 2 seasons, maybe. But yeah, great last name. So let's, here's to Rolovich getting that weird first November 7th win. In like 50 years, like there's some nerds like us like going through the seasons and they're like, what the fuck was this year? Like when we look at like the 1907 years and they played like 6 games and like 2 of them were against high schools and like whatever, like they're gonna be like, why did they just play 7 games?
Yep.
Oh, 2020.
Yeah.
Hopefully only this year.
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't think we're gonna win, but it's more like I don't know. Like I'm just gonna roll with we're both in transition. We're probably in a bigger transition, but I also think WSU is more talented.
Yes.
Overall.
I think so.
So I'm just gonna roll with that. So Cougs by 6, or Jack Thompson says Cougs by 50, but I don't think that's gonna happen. But
yeah, that seems a little far fetched.
But I do love that he says that. So.
I do too. It's great.
That's one of my favorite Twitter things, because Twitter mostly sucks now. But
mostly.
Yeah. All right.
Mostly.
So we both got the Cougs, Jeff. 31-27, Jeff. 29-23 for me. Let's get some weirdness in on this Rolovich first game. Okay, so let's take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about Coug basketball. We're going to talk about UW's first game. And then we'll be done. So,
all right.
Talk to you soon.
And we're back.
Dude, this has been a really good time for us podcast, because there's been nothing happen, no numbers updated. I'm wondering if everyone went to sleep. Maybe I'm just going to be staying up late for no reason tonight.
I mean, we're waiting on the East Coast, and it's what time? I don't know, 1 a.m. on the East Coast right now?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, you drinking a beer?
I am. I have a bubble wrap hazy IPA from the Crux Fermentation Project.
One of my favorite Fermentation Project.
So this is, as they say, a limited release hazy India Pale Ale. So there you go. It's limited, which means it's very exclusive.
Yeah. With Crux, that means it's probably not that limited.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. I mean, I got it at Costco. So.
Yeah. Limited release that you can only get
limited
at your favorite giant box store.
Yeah, but yeah, it's solid. It's solid. It says it's let's see, how does it say? Dangerously delicious. This hazy drinks clean and keeps you coming back for more.
Is it dangerously delicious, Joe?
No. I mean, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, I'm sure they don't make bad beer.
Yeah, but I don't think I would call it dangerously delicious. I mean, it's your pretty, I mean, it's. I know this is going to sound like, I don't know, like with most hazies, it's if you've had one, you've had most of them.
Oh yeah, dude. That's why I quit trying to chase those things.
I mean, some of them. So the one brewery who I think does a tremendous job with them is Mirage. And there's, they have a way of, I think, inserting a little personality into their different, their different beers. But yeah, this is your pretty standard run of the mill hazy IPA. It's good. If you like hazies like I do, it's good. So yeah, solid beer. How about you, friend?
Well, I'm going to say something. I'm reading about this bubble wrap IPA.
Okay.
And one thing that interests me, they said they used whole leaf Citra, Mosaic, and Galaxy hops. So typically you use pelletized, or pelletized is most common. So I mean, I can see why it's limited. That's more expensive and messier and everything. So that's pretty interesting. I'm actually kind of drinking between two beers. So earlier, as I was watching watching the ballots come in on CNN, I watched potentially these two states turning blue. And the areas that were turning them blue. So I was inspired. I went downstairs and I may have already done this beer on this podcast. I don't even know. I went and grabbed a varietals version of Black is Beautiful.
Yes.
Which Varietal did not fuck around with it. They basically took some beers that they already had in casks and made a blend of barrel-aged stouts and added some cinnamon and vanilla. It's very tasty. So their anniversary beer is pretty similar. So I'm sure they just kind of made a variation on that. But cheers to them using a beer that they, instead of using a beer that they probably expected to make a lot of money on, charge a high price for, whatever. Instead, with the Black is Beautiful beers, which is, I think we've had before.
We had them on.
So we've had them on here before. Just to recap, it was started by Weathered Souls Brewing. Marcus, the brewer there, basically they gave a base stout recipe, and they gave they made a label that people could put on it, but like people didn't have to use that label. Like like the original one was just like a basic 10% imperial stout. I had one from Stoop the other night. It was like a 6% stout. We've had coffee stouts, whatever. This one, they went with a blend of barrel-aged stouts, varietal in Sunnyside, the Yakima Valley. Like, honestly, it's a lot braver to make a Black is Beautiful beer around there than it is maybe if you're a brewery in Seattle. Cheers to them. This is a very good beer. I've been drinking it tonight. I also am riding with a T-Dome Pils from my local E9, but
that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's
for Pils.
Yeah, very good Pilsner. I talked about E9 a lot last week, so I'm not gonna do that again. But yeah, so that's been just so I could save some of the because I was drinking the Black is Beautiful before, so I've just been trying to save some. For when we actually talked about beer. It's very tasty. I've had it a couple times at this point now. Cheers to Varietal. I think I've talked about them before. Brewery out of Sunnyside that's just crushing it. Legit one of the best breweries in Seattle is in Sunnyside. I think my beer last
week was a Varietal.
Yeah, exactly. You had the Weed Wolf or something. It was old. I can't remember. It was an old one, but it's still good.
Yeah, it was the Imperial IPA.
Yeah, well, they have a lot of those. They're crushing it out there. You just gotta you're going through, you're smelling the Dairy Gold cows or whatever, and then you get a Varietal, and they have a nice little tap room, and it's good. They got a food truck, and it's very good. That's a beer. We talked about beer for 20 minutes last week, but we'll cut it. We'll keep it short this time.
We should.
Black is Beautiful. But I did want to talk about was. Briefly, we don't have to go into this because we'll get it more into basketball later. But hey, basketball has a first non-conference game. They're doing a multi-team event which they're sharing with Wyoming.
Yeah. How about that?
And WSU is starting the season on November 25th officially against Texas Southern in Pullman. So, yeah. And I would assume the Wyoming one is in Wyoming. I forget who they're playing, but I don't know. Maybe we'll play the other team. I don't know. Whatever. But we do know that WSU will play Texas Southern on November 25th. And Jeff, what we wanted to do together, because neither of us have seen it.
Which is weird because we are normally like before the
Sherwood had to give us.
We are typically
up.
Click and refresh. Is
we
dropped yet?
Finally. This is obviously way later than it usually happens. Is that Ken Pomeroy has uploaded his first preview basketball ratings for the season, and I'm clicking on it now. Jeff, roll with me.
Okay,
roll with me.
Me too.
Scrolling through. So, if you remember when we had Ken Pom on, we had Ken Pom on a fucking podcast, by the way. If you're a new listener, we had Ken Pomeroy. If you're a new listener because it's football season and you have not listened to this before, the one episode I would say go back and listen to is we had Ken Pomeroy and WSU assistant basketball coach John Andershek on. It was amazing. Listen to it. Go scroll back through your feed, find it, listen to that one. Come on, it's Ken Pomeroy. But he said if CJ came back, we'd be our best rating since Klay Thompson, and so that would put us roughly between the 90-ish 60 range. We don't have Klay Thompson, or we don't have CJ Ellaby.
We don't have CJ Ellaby.
So where are we at? Oh.
136.
Yeah.
That's not too bad. It's actually not bad as a starting point.
He's only got, and in fairness, this is all he would have had is Oregon State and Colorado.
Yeah, there's only 2 games in there right now because that's all we actually know.
So where's Texas Southern? 258.
Yeah.
All right.
We started last season at 164. So that's pretty good improvement.
Moving on up.
One thing I'm not sure about, though, I don't know how...
we ended last season at 127. So not that much of a drop.
Just a hair below
season,
that. Yeah. One thing that is a little weird, I'm not sure... not sure where his numbers are coming from right now. So he's predicting our adjusted offensive efficiency is going to be 99.1, so less than 1 point per possession, but somehow that's an above average offense.
Yeah, is he just like, he's got the D1 average at a 98 when it was 102.4 last year.
Yeah, so is he like thinking that offense is really going to suffer this year? Like, I'm a little...
Gotta get him back on, man. Yeah, so just for reference, since the D1 average for points per possession has never been that low in the Ken Palm, not even close. It's been, the lowest has been about 102.5, 102.1 in 03 was the lowest. And now he's got this prediction for 98, which makes it's very weird to me. Yeah. Especially after last year, it was at 102.4, which is definitely lower than usual. Last year was the 3-point line was extended. That was last year, right?
Yeah. So he's predicting that our offense will be worse, but
everyone's offense will be
better
worse
relative to everyone else, which again,
and he was predicting that our defense will get worse relative to everyone else.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, honestly,
I don't know.
I'm trying to look in his Twitter feed right now.
What the hell's going on, Ken?
I'm trying to look on the Twitter feed and see what's going on with that, but he is not tweeted recently. Well, he tweeted on November 2nd about USC's McKay Anderson and how he played his first minute of college basketball on November 8th, 2013, and if he could find a place to play next season, could play his last minute in March 2022. So, I don't know how that worked. But apparently there's some guy who's really, truly going to have been around for a decade. So I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know. I don't know what that means. Now I'm all befuddled, man.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
This is making for great radio.
But yeah, this is what we wanted. We wanted to find out.
Yeah,
everything
well, now we know.
On air here.
Predicted to be
1-1.
Yep. Predicted to be 1-1. Although losses predicted for both Oregon State and Colorado. It's just that the probability works out.
It's a toss-up with
round
Oregon
up.
State.
Yeah, toss-up with Oregon State. Round up with Colorado, who we already beat this year.
Yeah.
So.
For the national championship.
So, yeah.
This would have been way more fun if CJ came back, but, you know.
Yeah, that's all right. It's going to be fun anyway. Yeah. I mean, I'm super excited. I know that the young guys are. I don't know. They're all very intriguing dudes.
Intriguing dudes,
and they are actually long and athletic.
Yeah, they're long and athletic. They legitimately
not like those times
are.
When you were told they were long and athletic, and they actually weren't. So.
And they're intriguing dudes, which don't we all want to be in life? Isn't that a goal we should always strive for? Is to be an intriguing dude.
Wyoming, by the way, 198. So that's a game we'll be favored. So we'll be favored in all three.
Are we definitely playing Wyoming?
Isn't that the deal? We're hosting a MTE with them.
Yeah, I guess so. We'll play them.
Yeah, so we'll play everybody.
Okay, but are they all playing in Pullman, or is it just like we're playing different places?
I don't know about that. Yeah. I don't know how that's going to work, but if they're teaming up for a multi-team event, they're all going to play each other. So
yeah, that was Goodman reporting that. What is he for? Stadium or where is
Stadium?
He
yeah, he's with Stadium.
Yeah, well,
he's pretty
a
reliable.
lot of people are not at ESPN anymore as of today.
No. Well, they're I mean, I think they're all going to be in jobs until I think the end of the year. But
yeah. Well, not as of today, but we know that they'll be gone.
Yeah.
As of today.
Which is weird. But
yeah.
Whatever.
Bob
anyway.
Lee, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Idaho's 334. Hello there.
We must end up playing them, right?
I would think we would have to.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I bet we'll end up getting a game going on with
that. That has to be, man. That is the
it's the longest
for the Palouse, man.
The
longest running rivalry west of the Mississippi.
It's either that or is it that one or is it Oregon State? I can't remember.
No, it's Idaho, man.
It's Idaho.
Yeah, longest running rivalry west of the Mississippi. We got to play Idaho. That has to happen. So anyway, yeah, that's not a whole lot going on there.
Yeah.
We'll know. It'll be more interesting to talk about once the schedule fills out.
So Pac-12.
So
we'll transition. So we'll transition back to football for a sec. That's my segue. It's just like we're done with that. But Pac-12 season hasn't even started. We've already got our first COVID cancellation.
Yeah.
So UW will not be playing Cal this weekend.
And for the record, it is not UW's fault.
It is not UW's fault.
But it's pretty great that they're the ones who are getting screwed.
Yeah. I think they were playing the late game too. I think it was going to be both of us playing those late games.
No, I think their game was earlier.
Oh, I can't remember.
4:30 or something.
Oh, okay.
4 o'clock.
But they will not be playing it. It will not be happening because Cal had a player test positive for COVID, and then every other single person in his position group is required to sit out because of that, because he's been around them. So they released a statement that said that they don't have enough players, or the Pac-12 did. They didn't have enough players to play. And it seems like it's not because they don't have 53 players. It seems like because there's one specific position where they have 0 players.
Yes, so the position is defensive line. So it was a defensive lineman who tested positive.
Mm-hmm.
And, okay, so this whole thing is just kind of bizarre. All right, so you and I have made our stance on COVID and
done
responsibility.
That enough.
Like we've made our position really clear. Okay, great. So now I'm going to surprise everybody by saying, like, I don't know what the state of California is doing on this, and it seems overboard. Like, it seems overboard. So one guy tests positive, and they go about the contact tracing. Okay, so Cal, for their part, says, look, we put in a whole bunch of protocols to make sure that if anybody ever tested positive, that we would be able to say that nobody else in their position group was in close enough proximity to them to trigger the contact tracing quarantine.
Yeah.
Okay. So like if you've spent, enough time in close quarters with someone who tests positive, right, you're supposed to quarantine. And that goes for everybody. That's not just like Cal. That's like you, me, whatever. Like if I were at work and somebody tested positive and I had spent, 30 minutes in close proximity to them, they would be like, you should quarantine for 14 days. Okay. So Cal gets this positive test. And then it sounds like the local health authority in Berkeley, like, descended on the program and like started doing interviews about who was close to them to start determining contact tracing. And then they determined that whatever protocols Cal had put in place were not sufficient, and that all of the players in the position group were now needing to be quarantined because of close contact to this one positive case. And I'm like, okay, so how often is the entire health department of Berkeley descending on a group of people because of a positive test? Like, are they being singled out because they're a football team? Like, it all just seems very, very strange. And if Cal had spent, if they did what they said they did, which I have no reason to believe they didn't, went into it with the intentions of making sure that if someone ever did test positive, that they would that one person would just have to be sidelined and then everybody else could go along.
Yeah.
Cal feels blindsided by this deal. And look, California gets made fun of a lot, right? Mm-hmm. About this kind of stuff. Like, and a lot of it I don't think is fair. But this one, I'm having a hard time talking myself into, this is the good and responsible thing. Like, I'm just like, and I know I tweeted, by the way, if anybody's like, well, you tweeted out, like, I know I tweeted out earlier, the Pac-12 did the right thing. That was before all the details had come out, and I didn't know kind of what had happened. I just,
hashtag never tweet.
Yeah, like at the beginning, I was like, what, did they have a giant house party? Like, what happened? That all these people were so close that now they've all got a quarantine. No, it just turned out it was like a position group. Like, if you have a positive test and it automatically means your whole position group has to sit out, like, you're never going to play, right? Like, you're never, ever, ever going to play. So, I don't know, man. It seemed overboard, and I'm as cautious as anybody, but man, this just, I don't know, man. It seemed like a lot. It seems like this really does, to me, seem like sort of government run, unaccountable government run amok.
Well, yeah, I'll say like we're looking at putting B in, because she just desperately needs it, putting her in like a part-time daycare or whatever, or preschool.
Listen, we've had the same conversations about our kids. For
she's
sure.
She's not because she turns 3 this month. She couldn't start like preschool, like public preschool or whatever. Not that we don't know if we'll even qualify for it, whatever. So we've been looking today. We visited a couple preschools around us, and like one of the places, they had like really big, like some of their like restrictions were like, if you have to establish like a close bubble, and if you go outside of that bubble, then you can't bring the kid in for 14 days or whatever. And obviously that's on the honor system, right?
Sure.
But honestly, a toddler could spoil that for you in 2 seconds. Like,
that is 100% true.
Like, you cannot lie to anybody when you got a toddler.
No.
They
come up to you
they repeat
like,
everything you say.
The preschool people are like, have you been outside of your bubble? No. But Daddy, what about shh?
She's immediately like, I saw Grandma this weekend. Like, shut up. No, you didn't.
Shut up.
But that's that kind of made me think of that. And so we she was up front of us, like, some parents like can't handle those restrictions. I'm like, okay, like, we see her parent, Amanda's parents, we see my parents, we see my everyone, and so it's like, I don't know if we could go along with that. Plus the other place like had way more lenient hours and things like that, so we're gonna go with that one. So way to go, preschool that's next to the what is a Jewish church called inside
a synagogue.
Well, it wasn't called that though.
Oh, it wasn't?
Yeah, it was called something. A temple. It was a temple.
Oh, okay.
So it's inside a temple. So
right.
So B will get a little
Someone's
bit.
probably going to email us and say, "There's a difference between a temple and a synagogue."
Yeah, and that's this exactly. So
sorry.
This is what we're talking about. I was like, okay, if she went here, like they do a little bit of like they do some like on Friday they do some like they're like, we're not a Jewish preschool, but we do a few things. So I was like, I don't know, she'll learn something new. Like, she'll learn something different that she would never learn like in our culture. Like, she'll learn a little Hebrew, like, whatever. It's like, that sounds okay. That sounds fine. Like, whatever. It's like outside, because now we're sitting going like, is this a synagogue or a temple? I don't know what the difference is that. And then she'll just, when she's older, she'll correct me because she'll actually know because she went to school there. But yeah, that just reminded me of that. Like, because that was my day, that's part of my day today. Like,
yeah.
Okay, so I can't take my kid to preschool for 2 weeks because she saw her grandma. Like, I don't think we're gonna go that far. But
I mean, I don't know. Maybe Cal. I mean, that's the thing. Like, maybe I have finally gotten to a little bit of COVID fatigue, and maybe.
Well, I think I 100% agree with you.
Maybe,
we're all getting there.
Yeah, and maybe watching all of these other conferences play and being like, well, nobody's died yet, I guess. Like I know that sounds like super horrible, and I feel horrible saying it, but I'm also like, I don't know. I mean, people are getting infected in these, and I know that the point.
This sounds pretty bad after what we talked about
totally.
with Trevor Lawrence last week.
100%.
So I know, but yes, we're all getting COVID fatigued. Like, I think everyone.
I just feel like there's got to be a little middle ground.
We've all at this point done something, like went in a situation,
sure,
and then pulled back and been like, probably shouldn't have done that.
Absolutely.
Like, we've all done that at this point. Yeah. And it's become easier to kind of do that because like you're just tired of sitting in your house.
Yeah.
And like you're like wearing a mask doesn't bother me anymore. I don't even give a shit if I have to wear a mask to go to the grocery store. But I'm also way more likely to go to the grocery store now. Like I just don't. I'm like whatever. Like I'm so excited to go outside of the house. Like just to go to Costco. Like whatever. Like so yeah. We're all tired of it. So at the same time, like you're right. Like Cal did everything they thought they were supposed to do, and then like and now they have to cancel a game. Like when they only get 7, but it's 6 like scheduled games. Like it's, and then plus like UW, they don't get to play the game too, which we hate UW or whatever. But I want to see Jimmy Lake lose his first game. Like come on. Yeah,
I mean, as I think Kyle Sherwood said on our Slack, it's not fair that UW's going to be spared from the Cal bullshit.
Exactly.
Like that's not okay.
Like UW gets Cal bullshitted just like we do.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's just so weird to me. Like there's these other, we talk often about this country. It's just like, all these different places and all these different people. And we're like, are we even in the same country? And it's like, there's these other teams across the country that have, 25 guys test positive and they just go, well, they're not available this weekend.
And then there's 10,000 people in the stands. And there's 10,000 people in the stands,
and
like
they go play their game, and Cal has one fucking guy.
Yeah. They're like, okay,
positive.
We had 25 tests positive, but we still have 53 to play. Like it's literally they have to have bananas. Like 40 dudes test positive to not play a game.
Yeah, it's nuts. And so and then they got, and I mean, even, Wisconsin
like Nick Saban,
canceled their game, and they have, 20 positive tests. I mean, okay, fine, I get that. You've got a massive outbreak. But, like...
And you're just not wanting to spread it to...
Yeah, if there's no evidence of a massive outbreak, then what are you doing? Like, that just doesn't... I don't know, man. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's unfortunate, and I don't know. I swear this is not me just being like, well, it's Pac-12 now, so let's play. I just I don't know, man.
It's like if you're doing what you have to do.
There's something about reading that story that just didn't sit right.
If it's really like
stuff I've been like, yeah, let's do it. It just didn't sit right.
If one positive test on a team can derail a game,
yeah.
Then
which,
there's
by the way,
no reason.
That was our fear at the beginning, right? When we talked about this shit back in August. We were like, well, what happens when you get one positive test, and it was like, oh, you're going to have to not play a game. And okay, but
then what's that's like, if that's the bar, then what's the point? Why are you trying to play the games?
Right. And then we eventually we came around to the idea as a society that one positive test was not enough to derail an entire game. And so we should go ahead and play. Go ahead and let them play. Okay, fine. But it's but now we're back to where we were in August, which was thinking, okay, well, one positive test is going to mean nobody can
And we'll
play.
say this is not the Pac-12.
No, this is
California.
This is all the city of Berkeley.
The city of Berkeley, yeah.
Yes. Apparently they are the one program that is subject to a city health authority and not just a county or state health authority. So.
Berkeley very much living up to its reputation.
Yeah, it is. Oh, God. It's that was my first thought was the Pac-12 is going to get laughed off the airwaves.
Oh,
the
yeah.
rest of the country.
I can imagine. We're being the nicest to them. We're being the nicest right now.
I know. And I get the caution, out of an abundance of caution. I mean, I get all that.
Okay, no one ever say that again, please.
Please not. But, I mean, it's I don't know. Like I said, I read it. It just doesn't quite sit right. It seems like maybe that's it's a little too much, man. It's a little too much, and so I feel bad for Cal, because they're sort of at the mercy of this health authority. I don't feel bad at all for Washington because fuck those guys. So,
well, I do feel bad for them that they couldn't lose.
Maybe that part, that they didn't get the joy of losing to Cal this year, but. Yeah, but I mean, Pac-12 starting up so late. This is the other piece. I mean, the game's canceled. They ain't playing it.
There's nowhere to put it.
They're just not playing it. So, I mean, unless something weird happens and things start getting pushed back. But so far, everybody's been pretty committed to not pushing anything back. So,
they're gonna try to proceed with this end of the year as best they can.
I think so because all the money wrapped up in in the playoff. But I don't know. I mean, if anything in the last 6 months has taught us anything, it doesn't really matter when anything is played.
Just, like, at the same time, like
play that game in March. Who cares?
I don't think UW or Cal were not going to contend for this, but like, I mean, maybe they would have. I don't know. In such a short season, but like, they're already like. That's probably like, I don't know. I guess you could go 5-0 and be considered for it. I don't know, but like, you're already behind it right there. Yeah, because you've already seen like there's a couple teams that from the Pac-12 that are ranked in the 25s and stuff, but we're already starting from behind the 8 ball here. Like Oregon's gonna have to like blow the hell out of whoever they're playing. I can't remember. This week to like even to put someone on notice, like that's how like it's going to be like to have to USC or Oregon just destroys their opponent. And
that's I mean somebody's going to have to like just stomp through everybody.
Oregon's playing Stanford. That's
make a case.
Oregon's playing Stanford in That's right, in California. That's right.
Yeah, but different counties. Different counties with Palo Alto and Berkeley. So
speaking of Stanford. Sorry, David Shaw, for making fun of you for crying
after
losing to WSU.
Oh my gosh!
Because you donated your blood marrow to your family member to save their life that day. So
what a crazy story, huh?
Sorry, I laughed at you for crying after WSU beat you in 2018.
Yeah. So if people haven't seen this story, so we put it in the HCA, the Hot Cougar Action this morning. David Shaw, so the morning of our game against them in 2018, David Shaw went and had a procedure done, which was basically meant to stimulate stem cell growth so that then the stem cells could be harvested out of his blood and used in a transfusion with his brother, who was basically down to his last treatment option for cancer. So David Shaw had this procedure done, and they said basically in the next like 12 hours, your body will start to hurt, your joints will start to hurt, et cetera, et cetera. And then over the next couple of days, you'll be very fatigued. So basically the day of that game, he went and got this thing done. And by the time the game was being played, his joints are starting to hurt and whatever. And basically it sounds to me a lot like, and I'm no doctor, but I know that, when Tristan had leukemia, one of the telltale signs of leukemia is this feel of pressure on your joints and in your bones, right? Because the cancer cells are growing in these small spaces and pushing outward, right? And so it sounds like to some degree that's kind of similar to what was being done inside of his blood, where basically there were more of these cells in there pushing out from the inside. And so very painful. If it's anything like leukemia, when that stuff starts to run rampant, those blood cancers. So, later in the week, they basically took his blood out, ran it through a machine, and then put it back in without the stem cells. And then they used the harvested stem cells to treat his brother. And spoiler alert, his brother is cancer free now. It's a really amazing, incredible story.
That's amazing.
And and I was in tears this morning reading it. So, yeah, David Shaw after the game, right, when we came back and beat him on a last-second field goal, kind of had this crying press conference.
Yeah, it seemed like at the time.
It seemed very weird.
It seemed very weird. It was like, dude, I know that you haven't beat us for a while, but
it's not that big of a deal.
Like, yeah.
He seemed very emotional about the fact that they couldn't figure out a way to beat Mike Leach. And it was like, really? Like I don't know, man. That seems like a weird thing to get emotional about.
I get it. You had a really hard day,
and
you
really,
just
really
wanted this good thing to happen. Like,
yeah,
you would have loved this good thing to happen when this other thing is weighing on your mind and you feel terrible. So it's like, oh man, I know that in my Max Borghi feature last year, I poked fun at it a little bit as well. So I feel really bad about that. Now that I know, it's one of those things where I don't
you're
feel
such a jerk.
I don't feel bad, like so bad, because it's like, how could I have known, like, whatever. But it's at the same time, it's like, wow, he did something amazing that morning, and
he did,
and then we went out and beat him, and whatever. He probably thinks of that as a pretty good day overall, so that's good, So.
Yeah.
Saved his
All
brother's
right.
life, so that's
Yeah,
cool.
that is pretty cool.
Yes.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. So on that note, let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
If you got an email for us, podcastvseveryone@gmail.com. Jeff is pod versus everyone on Twitter. I am at the Craig Powers. Coug Center is the website. I don't know. You probably know that if you listen to this.
And by the way, we have a huge ass football preview that we've been working through.
Yes.
So, definitely check that out. We got a couple more stories ready to drop
teased
on
it,
Friday.
I teased it, but we didn't go back to it. Zane has a really good graphic on how Jake
really
Dicker had the second smallest defensive line in Wyoming, but one of the best defenses in the Mountain West last year. And, of course, we have one of the smallest defensive line in Pac-12. So I encourage you to go see that. We have previews from Kevin Dudley coming, and there's and if you love listening to Jeff talk, we have another OSU preview on the Coug Center Hour.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of good stuff, and Jeff's got his piece on how well what should we expect from this weird season is coming tomorrow, right, Jeff?
Yeah,
so probably
we'll
whenever
have
they're listening.
predictions too.
We'll have staff.
predictions.
Oh, I
game
forgot
by
to
game
fill that
staff
out. My
predictions.
bad.
You better freaking do that.
No, I can still do it. I
Yeah.
didn't meet the best deadline.
Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't done that one
Dude,
yet.
you gotta G chat me the.
That'll probably drop on Saturday.
Send me the link like right now, and so I don't have to scroll back into Slack.
So you don't have to find it. So wait, I should have to go find it so that I can send it to you.
Yeah,
because
you got it. You got it on your. You just go on to if you go onto your Google Sheets, it'll be one of the most recent viewed.
Is that where I
that's
find
fine.
it? Oh, okay. Well, I'll just do that then.
Yeah, and so just do that for me, so I don't have to scroll back through all of our
all
of our
Slack
election
messages.
updates in Slack.
And there's like 1,000 of them.
All right,
been a lot.
Yeah, so all of that stuff. Check us out.
Yeah.
I promise I'll be writing more about previews and stuff later.
All right, you promised.
I promised. I promised you
everybody.
I was gonna write a feature and I didn't, so whatever.
Yeah, well, whatever.
But you got me to talk, so there you
I
go.
did. That's good.
All right, man.
Okay.
Go Cougs.
Go Cougs. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.